$7 million for reef fish management, $25 million to combat Asian carp, $2.5 million to count the number of amberjack fish in the Gulf of Mexico.
Early in the morning, they went to the table with the black robe, the black shield, and they pulled out the vote.
And by the way, you know, I sit on the stand, and it get hot. I got hairy legs that turn blonde in the sun. And the kids used to come up and reach in the pool and rub my leg down, so it was straight, and then watch the hair come back up again. They'd look at it. So I learned about roaches. I learned about kids jumping on my lap, and I've loved kids jumping on my lap.
The reason the market is doing what it's doing is people are sitting at home getting the checks from the government, okay? And this fair share is a bullshit concept. It's just a way of attacking wealthy people,
It's like, oh, Abel's your guy, eh, God? How about if I take him out in the field and beat him to death? Yeah. It's like, oh, Abel's your guy, eh? Yeah. It's like Abel's your guy, eh, God? How about if I take him out in the field and beat him to death? The field and beat him to death. Field and beat him to death. Field and beat him to death. Beat him to death. Beat him to death.
I liked beer. I still like beer. But I did not drink beer to the point of blacking out.
Look, talk about education, to help them deal with how to raise their children. It's not that they don't want to help, they don't know quite what to do. Play the radio, make sure the television, make sure you have the record player on at night, the phone, make sure the kids hear words. A kid coming from a very poor school, a very poor background, will hear 4 million words fewer spoken by the time they get there. There's so much I'm going to go like the rest of them do, twice over. Okay? To help them deal with how to raise their children. Make sure the television, make sure you have the record player on at night. Make sure the television, make sure you have the record player on at night.
We've ended the war on American energy. We were in war. And we've ended the war on beautiful, clean coal, one of our great natural resources. $7 million for reef fish management, $25 million to combat Asian carp, $2.5 million to count the number of amberjack fish in the Gulf of Mexico. They had a very bad original concept. It was carried out poorly. And the cover-up was one of the worst in the history of cover-up. There's a bad deal, should have never been thought of. Somebody really messed up. And they had the worst cover-up ever. And where it should have stopped is at the deal standpoint, where they thought about it.
Hello, users, and welcome to another show. We've got a show here today. It's got a show today. Got a program that is supposed to be it's supposed to be on right now, but I'm not sure. Wait. Okay. I got a program. Welcome, users, to another extravagant program of it's a good program. It's gonna be really good. Some would even say it is really good. And that's good. That's cool. And it's super, super cool that there's a show going on. It's pretty cool. Like my leggings? Thank you. Outer goddamn space. Am I right, people? Whoa. Whoops. So I got a show. There's a program today that's planned. It was a planned program. I guess we'll start off with this one. It's a really good program. Thank you, Donald James. That's going to be the new quotation on the stream. So give me a sec. I feel like this one's been on there long enough. It's a really good program. That's true. That's so true. All right. God, that's so true. All right. So we got a show here. Twitter.com. Twitter.com. Huh? Anyone? Twitter.com? Am I right? Twitter eyes deal with Musk as soon as Monday. That's today. Twitter Inc. is in the final stretch of negotiations about a $43 billion sale to Elon Musk that could rank as one of the biggest ever leveraged buyouts of a listed company. People with knowledge of the matter said, the social media company is working to hammer out terms of a transaction and could reach an agreement as soon as Monday if negotiations go smoothly, according to the people who asked not to be identified because the information is private. Musk is lining up partners for the acquisition and continues to speak to potential co-investors, one of the people said. Discussions between the billionaire Tesla Inc. chief executive officer and Twitter's board about a takeover at $54.20 per share continued overnight into the early hours of Monday. The people said. The people. Shares of Twitter jumped 3.9% to 50.84% as trading got underway in New York. So the stock market opened about 40 minutes ago. Let's check out. I'm going to look this up right now. What is it as of this moment? It is, still about $51. Let's see if it goes up to $54. As a Twitter shareholder, I have 2 shares of Twitter.com. As a shareholder for Twitter, I must say, or should I say, I must say, I am not happy with this development. Twitter started warming up to a potential deal after Musk revealed a financing plan for the unsolicited bid that include backing from Morgan Stanley and other institutions. The situation is fluid, and talks could drag on longer or fall apart. Representatives for Twitter and Musk didn't immediately respond to requests for comment. The Wall Street Journal reported earlier that the parties could be reaching agreement as soon as this week, citing unidentified people. This is from Bloomberg. This came out this morning. So obviously anything can still happen. But just in the same way, like Elon, I don't think a lot of people are having this like hyperbolic kind of reaction to this news. And again, let me just, let's all walk back to reality here for a moment. I don't think Twitter is going to, I don't think Elon Musk is going to use Twitter in a way where he's going to start banning everyone who posts that image of him with Ghislaine Maxwell. I don't know what kind of name Ghislaine is, but, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think Elon Musk is going to start banning, like left-wingers. I mean, Twitter already does that, right? So, I don't know. This, I think there's a big meltdown going on Twitter over the wrong reasons. Now, this is the same problem with this is the same problem going on with Jeff Bezos and the Washington Post, or Bill Gates and all his various media empires, right? It's that, let's zoom out 5 years from now, 10 years from now, right? I feel like Elon Musk, his strategy would probably be closer to slightly changing the algorithm over the course of multiple years, so that maybe he'll unban Donald Trump, stuff like that, to make people think he's doing something great. But again, I think the main thing here that we need to discuss is the Twitter algorithm, right? It's a mysterious, no one knows what the fuck the Twitter algorithm is. Same thing with YouTube, Facebook, all that shit. They have their proprietary algorithm. No one knows what they are, right? No one knows what they're, what they focus on. Twitter has already come out and said that their algorithm literally cannot tell the difference between Republican politicians and neo-Nazis. They said that a couple years ago. I think it was before they banned Trump. So this is before they were this is their excuse for not banning certain politicians. Was that their algorithm could not, they couldn't tell the difference between Republicans and neo-Nazis. And so that's why, that's why there's a special exemption for Republican politicians, because the algorithm just treats them all as neo-Nazis, right? So they had to have them, they had to add a special amendment to the algorithm that gave Republican politicians special privileges. And so this is what we're talking about. The algorithm, right, is really the concerning aspect of this. I think it'll be a slow shift over time where the algorithm will slowly suppress people that have certain belief systems that Elon Musk would not want to promote, and, start to show up more people like Facebook, for example. Very obviously manipulated by the far right. The algorithm is almost entirely, and it's openly, they've openly said, the algorithm for Facebook is extremely far right. They promote neo-Nazis like Steve Bannon or Ben Shapiro on a daily basis. Those are some of the highest view counts that are given on Facebook are to these neo-Nazi organizations. So, again, Facebook has already kind of lost the ball on that one. Twitter has really tried to straddle that line between liberalism and fascism. My opinion, they haven't done a good job about it. But I think what the ultimate goal of this move would be is to, own that algorithm, to be able to serve up whatever you want in any way that you want to people, and they won't know the better. They will know that, in the same way that the Washington Post publishes, it's there when you need it. That's the concept here. I'm trying to, when Bernie Sanders almost won the Democratic primary, what did the Washington Post do? Well, Jeff Bezos didn't want to deal with a Bernie Sanders presidency, right? So, he bought the Washington Post, 5-10 years ago or whatever at this point. And it's it's there. It's a tool in the toolbox. So, and now, in this current event, right, Bernie Sanders is about to, become the Democratic nominee. What can I do with my media empire to try to stifle that, right? So that's what that's the main concern, is that Elon Musk is building a media empire. And again, I don't think he's going to do anything drastic right now. We have to understand the way that these cycles move, right? American politics is cyclical, right? People love to make these moves in between major elections, right? The major elections would be the presidential elections, right? So, 2 years from now, or 3 years from now, or 7 years from now, 8 years from now, what is Elon Musk going to do with Twitter? That's what I'm concerned about. So my opinion is, this is bad. I hope it doesn't happen. But I don't think it's going to lead to Twitter becoming unusable overnight. I feel like a lot of people, and it could be, a lot of people are joking about it too, right? So, but I think what's going to happen is Elon's going to do a big marketing campaign, right, to try to make, Twitter's just as hip. Maybe he'll do a couple things, right? Maybe he'll unban Donald Trump. Honestly, that would be hilarious, right? So, maybe he'll do a couple of other things, just to make it his identity. But I think the main thing he wants to buy here is the user base and the algorithm. Those are the two most important products that Twitter has, right? And so that's what I'm worried about. I'm worried about that algorithm bullshit. I mean, like, again, look at YouTube, look at Facebook, look at Google, look at all these companies that use these secret algorithms, right? They're almost all garbage, right? You know what I mean? So, but when you have control of that, you control the flow of information. You're like fucking Newman from Seinfeld, you know? When you control the goddamn mail, you control information, right? That's what Elon Musk is attempting to do. It's the same shit that Jeff Bezos is doing, Bill Gates is doing, right? It's just that Elon Musk is now finally getting into that space. So there you go. Honestly, my opinion, if Donald Trump, you know, in fact, I'm going to do a segment on this. I'm going to do a whole segment on this question. So, I think it's possible that Elon Musk, if he, becomes the owner of Twitter, right, if this deal goes through, I think it's possible, I've heard this discussed, that he would unban Donald Trump. So I want to talk about this. This is my opinion. Should Donald Trump be unbanned from Twitter? My answer is yes. I'm going to say yes, he should be unbanned from Twitter. And I've got a couple reasons for this. Now, I don't think Donald Trump should be unbanned from Twitter on some grand free speech. Oh, the free marketplace, the public square, everyone should be involved. I don't think he should be unbanned because of any of those stupid fucking reasons, okay? That, I need to get that out. I want to foreground that. But the main reason I think Donald Trump should be unbanned from Twitter is because if you look at all the polling, right, that has ever been constructed, Republican primaries, like Republican polling, all that stuff, people outside of his base of loyalists that believe the big lie, everyone else that knows the big lie is bullshit, really doesn't like when he talks about the rigged election. Now, let's look at the Georgia runoff election, right? So he spent, in between the November 2020 election where he lost, Joe Biden was the winner of the 2020 election, in between that and the Georgia special election, the runoff election for the Senate, Donald Trump spent all the time talking about the rigged election. And guess what? Two Republicans lost the Senate in Georgia. Why? Because it depressed the Republican vote. Because, he convinced Republicans that the voting is rigged, and why vote if the voting is rigged, right? So, in my opinion, if Donald Trump were to go back on Twitter, people would pay attention more to him, and he would piss more people off, in my opinion, by whining about the election. We all know if he's on Twitter, he's going to be whining about the election every single day. Every single day he's going to be whining about the election. That's just going to be what he's doing. Now, again, would he possibly expand his base? Maybe. It's possible. But I think his likelihood of expanding the base is as likely with or without Twitter, right? I think one of the main things that makes Trump so powerful at this point is that people are not immediately as frequently being, met with his more deranged Looney Tune conspiracy theories. Now, that being said, again, I don't think he should be unbanned from Twitter on some grandiose free speech bullshit. He obviously broke the rules. He should be banned. If anyone's going to be banned from Twitter, it should be the Orange Man. That said, I think strategically, if he does get unbanned, I think it is a net positive. That's my reading of the situation. I think if he got unbanned, I feel like he might expand his base a little bit. Things might get a little turbulent. He might use it for organizing some really bad stuff. But I do think overall, it might reduce his chances of winning in 2024. That's my opinion. I could be wrong. I'm more than open to being wrong. I've heard many people's opinions on this. I'm down to have respectful debate or disagreement on this issue. My opinion, when Trump was banned, I don't care. I still don't care that Trump is banned. My only point is that just from the polling I have seen, it indicates that the more Donald Trump talks about the big lie, the more he drives a wedge in the Republican Party. Now, again, he's got his base of people that support that shit, right? And I think he could expand that base. But I do think that there's going to be more people turned off overall from his incessant garbage than would be, brought into that tent or that coalition. That's my opinion. I could be wrong. I'm very open to being wrong on this. But, I just want to talk about that because, it's a big thing people are talking about. Is the Orange Man coming back to Twitter? Maybe. I don't know. Would Elon Musk do that? I think he probably would. I honestly think if Elon Musk would do anything to kind of put his identity into the Twitter thing, if he buys Twitter, if he puts his identity into it, I think that could be one of the main tools in the toolbox. That's my opinion. Obviously I have no control over this, right? Whether or not you support this or don't support this in the abstract, that doesn't matter. He's going to do what he's going to do regardless. So I think that that's likely to happen. Also, side effect, Trump's going to be posting bangers. Like, it's going to be great for the content creators. He's going to be talking about Diet Coke. You know, he's still, I guarantee you, he's still drinking that garbage. Like, what, fucking 10, 15 laters after that legendary tweet? Anyway, that's my opinion on that subject. I could be wrong. I'm open to being wrong. You know, much to discuss. Let's discuss it in the comments. I don't love social media bans since I don't like how much of these companies have power to make the decisions, but I much prefer the former guy being... Yeah, that's my thing. Like, yes, like, the way ban systems work on Twitter is ridiculous. I'm definitely not involved in that in any, like, free speech way. I'll disagree with you on this. Trump should stay banned. One of the reasons he got popular is because of his Twitter, but honestly, Musk will push for this because of free speech. See, now I agree with that. I think Trump would not have been able to rise to the presidency without Twitter. But also, like, we're in a different world, you know what I think everyone in this country at this point has an opinion on Donald Trump. That's my opinion. That I think everyone, if you ask anyone on any sidewalk, how do you feel about Donald Trump? I feel like they'll be able to answer that question, right? So, I don't know. I'm not sure if it'll have the same effect, but I could be wrong. We'll see. Unbanning Trump would gain Elon infinite favor with Trump, which could be very useful to Musk's various businesses if Trump takes office again. That's another good point. Different day, same shit. Hey, Mila? At least I'm not drinking orange dye. Number 40. There's a lot going on, y'all. In the world, there's a lot going on. There's so much bull. There's so much goddamn bull. So much goddamn bull. You look at the world, I look at the world, you know what I see? I see some bull. Mass shooting here, mass shooting there, child gets a gun and kills their brother there. Kid gets a knife and murders their whole family. Domestic abuse, this, execution this, murder that, murder, execution, death row. Like, man, what a world we live in. Holy shit. When I got into this whole doing a news show thing, like, I knew the world was fucked up, but fuck. It's crazy. How was my weekend? My weekend was, like, honestly, like a 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 tier. It was, like, as far as, like, what I'm capable of doing, staying at home and stuff, I'd love to go out and do stuff, but, we live in a pandemic right now. But given that context, I had a great fucking weekend. I talked about this a little bit yesterday, but Saturday, I started a new project. I will announce this project later. But it is a new project, a side project for, I don't know how long it's going to take, but it is a new side project. I will announce it later, but I'm announcing that there will be an announcement. Later is like not even like maybe 3 months, 4 months. I don't know. It's possible. But I did start it Saturday, and I was doing a lot of mushrooms while I started this project, and so that made it really fun. To get going, and I had a great time. So, at least I have kittens. The world may be going to shit, but at least I have kittens here on the farm. That's fucking farm and stall. I've got kittens on the farm. They all say meow. Oh, they're on the farm. I'm gonna go on the farm and raise me kittens. I've got at least 16 kittens. I've got a kitten named Mittens. And he's got very cute. And the kitten, he says, meow. He looks at you with those eyeballs, and then you want to pet the kitten. I can't. I don't know what I'm doing. All right. Goddamn son of a bitch. Woo! My weekend was stressful. Oh no. All right, let's talk about news. So, speaking of death row and executions, the state of Texas, not so good when it comes to just about everything. So, I want to read this story here. Melissa Lucio is scheduled to be executed for a crime that may not have even occurred. So, there's a lot to take in here. This has been developing, over the course of more than a decade now, but of course, but her execution is scheduled to be very soon. And it's very clear, at least to me, upon looking into this story for a little bit, that there was no crime. So imagine, not only, well, I'll go into this. Let me frame this story here by reading this article a little bit. Melissa Lucio is scheduled to be executed next week for a crime she says she didn't commit. That would be this week. One that may not have even occurred. She was convicted 14 years ago of murdering her 2-year-old daughter, Maria, and a Texas jury sentenced her to death. The state says Lucio beat her daughter to death, but as new details have emerged about her case, a growing chorus of lawmakers, faith leaders, anti-domestic violence organizations, and celebrities have called for clemency. At least one juror from the trial says the jury was not given the full picture and that if he had known more, he would have never voted for the death penalty. No court has ever considered the new evidence of Melissa Lucio's innocence, says Vanessa Potkin, director of special litigation at the Innocence Project and one of Lucio's attorneys. So first and foremost, the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals could issue a stay so that the evidence of Melissa Lucio's innocence may be fully litigated in the court. And that's what we're hoping for. The case hinges on an interrogation of Lucio conducted 2 hours after Maria died, during which officers tried to get Lucio to confess to hurting her daughter. Now again, this is where the story gets extremely bad. Lucio's attorneys say police had already decided on a narrative when they brought her in for interrogation. After 5 hours of questioning, 5 hours, so this is 7 hours after her child is dead, during which Lucio expressed her innocence more than 100 times, she eventually said, "I guess I did it." When asked if she was responsible for some of her daughter's injuries, the state called it an admission of guilt for Maria's death. So once again, this is in the same issue, in the same vein as torture, right? When you torture people, they will tell you anything you want to hear to get you to stop torturing them. It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter if, I'm going to admit to something that's going to result in me being tortured for 14 more years and eventually murdered by the government. That doesn't enter their brain. They are thinking, again, this is 6 to 7 hours after her daughter is is killed in some accidental situation, right? She is mourning her dead child, and police were torturing her for 5 hours. Like, your kid is dead, you're mourning your dead child, and you have thug gangsters with guns pointing weapons at you saying, you did it for 5 hours, okay? Literally, I cannot imagine a single person that would be able to survive such a scenario without, again, just admitting that you did it to get the torture and pain to stop. But again, there's more details about Lucio's upbringing that makes this even more of a sad story, so I want to read this part. Lucio, 53, is a Mexican-American woman who has struggled against poverty and abuse since childhood. She is the mother of 14 children, including Maria. According to court documents submitted by Lucio's attorneys, she was sexually abused by her mother's boyfriend starting at the age of 6. Abuse that lasted for 2 years. She married at age 16, according to the Innocence Project. It was an abusive marriage. Her first husband, the group says, was a violent alcoholic who left her after she gave birth to their 5 children. So, she has a history of abuse. This person clearly, right, has PTSD, right? And so when you're abused almost all the time by almost everyone in your life for almost your entire life, and then your kid dies, and then thug gangsters point guns at you and torture you for 5 hours. Once again, this is a trauma response. She just said anything that she could to get the pain to stop, right? It's that simple. Her next partner continued the cycle of violence. This is a quote, punching her in public and beating her at home. By the time she gave birth to her 12th child, Melissa had experienced homelessness, drug addiction, and severe mental illness, according to the amicus brief filed by former prosecutors, anti-violence organizations, and others on Lucio's behalf. Lucio was pregnant with twin boys at the time of Maria's death, and when she was interrogated, she gave birth to the twins while in jail and was forced to give them up for adoption. She should have never been in jail. There's I don't know, this is again, regardless of what you think, let's imagine a world where Melissa Lucio is, she threw her kid down the stairs on purpose or whatever, this fantasy realm, right? That doesn't make torture acceptable. We have actually an amendment that prohibits cruel and unusual punishment, right? So that doesn't make torture okay. All of a sudden, just because someone throws, or you think, especially in this instance, right? But let's assume that she did, that she's on camera. It does not make torture acceptable, right? It does not make forcing, pregnancies on her, and forcing her to give up her children with no other option, right? She can't organize, with any other family members, her current family at all, right? Doesn't make any of this acceptable, right? Torture is not an acceptable form of punishment, in my opinion. But then when you add on top of that she didn't do this, and there was no crime, right? And she was just tortured for 5 hours, right? And because of her response being tortured for 5 hours, she then continued to be tortured for 14 more years and is now going to be murdered by the government. I don't know, there is no other way around it. Anyone and everyone involved in this whole step, the police who tortured her, right? All the prosecutors who tortured her, the governors throughout their, all 14 years of governors who did not, issue her a pardon or clemency of any kind, though they all are participatory in torture. Every, juror, again, you should never vote for the death penalty. I'm not, exactly sure why they decided to vote for the death penalty. I'm not exactly sure if it was death penalty or innocent. I don't know that detail, level of minutia, but just the idea that you should never vote for that, that's torture. Every level of this, right? And especially when you factor in that she did not do anything at all, right? There was no crime. When you factor that part in, what the fuck? Right? And then factor in how much money was spent on torturing Melissa Lucio for 14 years. How much tax dollar money was wasted on torture? I would assume probably hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars over the course of 14 years of torture. When you are torturing someone for 14 years, running them through bizarre science experiments, locking them into cages, throwing them into other rooms and cages, solitary confinement, threatening them with murder on a daily basis, that is a lot of money spent on maintaining this torture regime. Why do people think she's innocent? At Lucio's trial, expert witnesses for the defense were not allowed to testify as to why she might have given a false confession. Among the experts her attorneys sought to put up on the stand was a psychologist who planned to testify that Lucio's history as a survivor of domestic and sexual abuse helped explain why she told interrogators what they wanted to hear after 5 hours. Again, I need to remind you, after 5 hours of torture, even if it wasn't true. But the trial judge ruled the testimony irrelevant, according to court documents. This is a whole system. That judge. Now again, if anybody, let's grant that torture is acceptable, because clearly we live in a society that has decided torture is acceptable. Me personally, I don't believe in torture, right? But let's pretend, let's go in a world where torture exists. Who is more deserving of being tortured? Someone who had their child die in front of them, right? Or a judge who deems that, psychological witnesses, people describing her history and pain and suffering, is irrelevant and sentenced her to death. Who deserves torture more? Someone who did nothing wrong and lost a child due to a random unfortunate accident? Or the judge who literally sentenced her to murder, to death? He pulled the trigger and shot her in the head, metaphorically speaking. If anyone out of all of these characters deserves to be tortured, I'm asking you, which one do you really think deserves to be tortured? And this is why, right, again, this is why I don't support torture, because it turns into an endless cycle, right, of revenge, and then people need revenge for their revenge, and then people need revenge for the revenge of the other person who got revenge, right? It turns into an endless cycle. My opinion, we should abolish torture. We should abolish, death penalty. We should abolish all forms of torture. That's my opinion, right? But if anyone deserves to be tortured, it's this judge. Instead, the judge has lived a lavish lifestyle of success. They're rich. Their family is bought and paid for. They have extreme political power. All they have to do is murder a couple people. What is the difference between that and mobsters or gangsters shooting people in the streets over drugs or whatever? Answer me this question. What is the genuine difference between the justice system, so-called in this country, and street gangs? Does anyone know what the actual difference is? The only difference is one of them has a piece of paper that has a signature on it that the rest of people just pretend means anything at all. Oh, you get that little signature by some random person, and then they put it in a book somewhere, and now you're allowed to shoot and kill people. Now you're allowed to murder people with weird cocktails of drugs. You're allowed to set people on fire. You're allowed to shoot them in the head. You're allowed to lock them in steel cages because someone signed a piece of paper? What? That all of a sudden makes torture okay? Potkin says it's now recognized that having a trauma history, such as Melissa had, being a survivor of sexual abuse and domestic abuse, is a risk factor and vulnerability during custodial interrogation for a false confession. False confessions are more common than you might think. More than a quarter of people exonerated by the Innocence Project in recent decades had confessed to the crime they allegedly committed. Again, this has been documented in things like Guantanamo Bay, where they illegally rounded people up, in some cases American citizens, and tortured them just because some dude said, yo, I know a guy, this guy totally has like a nuke or something, you want to go check this guy out? And then they find out that that guy put him in a locker in high school or something, had nothing to do with anything, but that guy was tortured for fucking years in Guantanamo, right? And then they said, yeah, I did have a nuke. It's over there. And then they found no nuke. And then they continued to torture him even more. Because obviously they went and looked for all the nuclear weapons of mass destruction, didn't find any. And they assumed, instead of lying about having the nukes, he must have lied about the location. And so let's torture him some more. Right? Again, this is every single example of torture results in false confessions. If you point a gun at someone's face and threaten to kill them and say, I'm going to murder you and your whole family and I'm going to destroy your life if you don't give me what I want, you're going to give them what they want. It's like if someone mugs you, points a gun at you and says, give me your wallet. Do you want to give them your wallet? Should you give them your wallet? No. But will you to avoid being murdered? Absolutely. It's that simple. But again, let's assume, even if Melissa Lucio escapes execution, which does not look to be happening, given the fact that the crazy governor of Texas has no interest in doing anything like that. Right, let's assume that she would be exonerated. Is the judge going to be held accountable for torturing her for 14 years? Are those cops going to be held accountable for torturing her for 5 hours that led to 14 years of torture? No. So let's assume, right, she is exonerated. Is our system even capable of holding anyone accountable for 14 years of torture. The most likely scenario, if she were exonerated, she'd be given like some cash settlement of some kind that equates to like less than minimum wage for working like half a job, part-time job for like fucking 5 years or something, right? That's usually what ends up happening, right? Are the cops who tortured her and threatened her with murder and torture and throwing in a steel cage for, like, are they going to be held accountable? No. Are any of the prosecutors going to be held accountable? No. Is anyone on the jury going to be held accountable? No. Is the judge going to be held accountable? No. Are the prison guards going to be held accountable? No. Is anyone else and throughout any other part of the system, or any of the former governors going to be held accountable? Those that, you know, were over the course of the last 14 years. Is anyone going to be held? No, of course not. Why? Because our system is not set up for that. The best case scenario is that the state says, whoops, here's $20, our bad. That's the best case scenario. And that's fucked up. Anyway, I don't know what to tell you. You can read this if you'd like. It's not looking good for Melissa Lucio. And this is just another example that fascists have control of the world. The government, right, of the United States is a fascist government. They will murder you. They will torture you, even though the Constitution says no. The Constitution says you are protected from cruel and unusual forms of punishment. I would say it's pretty cruel to throw someone in a steel cage for 14 years because their kid fell down the stairs and died while they were sleeping or something. Now, again, right, yes, should we have a broader conversation about child safety? Absolutely, right? But to throw all of the blame squarely on her, what about her abusive partner? What about all these other people that could have been involved in that or whatever, right? So, and also, again, why does everyone need to be, why does some random minority need to be held accountable for a random accident anyway? How come if there's an accident, we need to go and like fucking harass people and torture them for 14 years because of an accident? Now, if you want to say that people should be held accountable in some way because of an accident, okay. Death penalty? I don't think so. And especially, as it seems here, the accident didn't really have much to do with her. But again, our government is garbage. It's disgusting. Every step of the way. Every step. The government, those that pass laws, those that do the law, like enforcement, the cops, right? Those that read the laws and like decide and dictate all the things, the judges, whatever. Every form, every step of the way, corrupt fascists. The cops are corrupt fascists. The judges are corrupt fascists. The lawmakers are corrupt fascists. Every step of the way. They have designed a society that the goal is control and torture. They do it for fun. That's it. There's no other reason to torture people like this other than fun. It gets them hard. They, after torturing her, when they got that confession, they probably went into the back room and jerked each other off, the cops, I'm saying. Why? Because they get off on it. This is what they love to do. And instead of just like, you know, jerking off at home, like watching Pornhub or something, they decide to get their rocks off by ending people's lives, torturing them for decades. That's what gets them off. I couldn't possibly explain why another human would want to do that. But they do. That's the world we live in. So I don't know what to tell you. Anyway. Some goddamn garbage. All right, y'all. We're entering Polar Lime Seltzer. Shit. Fuck. I got like water on my computer. I hope nothing got like inside the case. Whoops. The show turns off. If you hear like a loud explosion and then the show turns off, not my fault. I didn't mean it. I didn't know that it would splash that way because I've been, you know, it happens. Yeah, Polar. I'm into Polar recently. I'm a Polar girl. I'm all in on Polar. All right. So this story is one that has been developing over about a week now. And this has gone through several phases. of reporting, and I want to talk about it now. Boulder climate activist dies after apparent act of protest outside U.S. Supreme Court on Earth Day. This is from the Denver Post. Friend of Wynn Bruce says his actions in Washington, D.C. were planned to bring attention to the climate crisis. Is coffee okay? I drink coffee every single day, multiple times a day. Anyway, this happened. I don't know what date Earth Day was. I have like problems with time perception, and it's not giving me a date, so I'm just gonna like look. I don't know, like Earth Day, comma April whatever. What is Earth Day? April 22. Okay, so this is a couple days ago. So someone set themselves on fire outside of the U.S. Supreme Court. And this was kind of like covered up by the media. This was like kind of like, I remember seeing reports about it. Like it was initially reported as man sets himself on fire outside the Supreme Court. And it wasn't really until like one of this person's friends went to Twitter to discuss it, right? Because this is, oh shit, this is my friend who set themselves on fire, right? And then, it started to circulate what his reasoning was. And it's been like a really strange scenario to watch the media kind of discuss this over the last couple of days. I was going to talk about this the other day, but then I ended up not doing a show on Saturday, so I kind of forgot yesterday. But anyway, now it seems that a lot of mainstream reports are talking about why he did this, et cetera, et cetera. So let's read this from the Denver Post. The Boulder man who set himself on fire in front of the U.S. Supreme Court on Earth Day apparently acted in protest of inaction on climate change. Wynn Bruce, 50, a climate activist, died Saturday, a day after his actions in front of the nation's highest court in Washington, D.C. He was airlifted for treatment, but did not survive. Kriti Kanko, who describes herself as Bruce's friend and a Zen Buddhist priest in Boulder, said on Twitter that Bruce's actions were a planned protest. Quote, "This is a deeply fearless act of compassion to bring attention to the climate crisis," she said in a tweet. She declined to comment further when reached by the Denver Post on Sunday, saying she needed some time to grieve. However, she told the New York Times she was not completely sure of Bruce's motivations. The newspaper reported saying that people are being driven to extreme amounts of climate grief and despair, and that what I do not want to happen is that young people start thinking about self-immolation. There are indications that Bruce had contemplated this action for some time. On his Facebook page, Bruce posted in October 2020 about a free educational course about climate change. A year ago, on April 20, 2021, he added a comment to that post, 411, an apparent reference to the directory assistance telephone number people use to call for information. Then, in October of 2021, he added a fire emoji to that comment. According to a publicly visible edit history earlier this month, on April 2, Bruce added the date that he would set himself on fire. The final message read 411 fire emoji 42222. Now, to me personally, I find it very interesting that he like made this kind of plan in like a random comment on like a multiple year old like I don't know. That's an interesting factor for me. Bruce, who had lived in Boulder since 2000, identified as a Buddhist who had worked as a photographer. He referenced and shared his teachings of Shambhala Buddhism founded in Boulder on his Facebook page. Jesse Friedman, executive director of the Boulder Shambhala Center, did not return a request for comment. Brianna Birch, a spokeswoman for the Metropolitan Police Department in Washington, D.C., said Sunday that to her knowledge, investigators did not find any sort of manifesto or note with Bruce's body. She said police were still looking into his motive. Bruce set himself on fire in an apparent imitation of the Vietnamese monks who burned themselves to death in protest during the Vietnam War. His friend, his Facebook page commemorated the death of Thich Nhat Hanh, an influential Zen Buddhist master and anti-war activist who died in January, who also in a letter wrote in 1965 to the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., had idolized those monks. Kriti cited that letter in another tweet on Bruce's death Sunday morning. There's a lot of info here. You can read into it more. But I want to summarize it. Basically, for what I'm not going to be one of those. There's a lot of really, in my opinion, ignorant people that do this whole don't glorify suicide thing. Me personally, if I cannot judge anyone for killing themselves, I will not ever judge anyone for killing themselves, unless it's someone I dislike. Then I'm gonna make fun of them. To be honest with you, I'm just letting my biases. Like if a Republican politician killed themselves or something, I'd be like, and I'm not saying they should do that, and I'm not saying anyone should kill themselves. But what I am saying is, people have the right to end their own lives. I support that. People have the right to end their own lives in whatever way they want. It's better, in my opinion, if you've decided to kill yourself, it's better to do so in an act of protest to get attention for a cause you believe in than to just shoot your brains out at your desk. That's my opinion. And I understand why and how people would come to the conclusion that they should kill themselves or they should end their own lives, to use a little bit more sanitary language. I don't agree with anyone saying that, other than anyone who's his friends or family who's been directly affected by this person's decision. Random jackass 69 on Twitter or on YouTube comment section has no right to say, oh, why you have to kill yourself, bro? Who cares what you have to say? You do not know this person. You do not know what was going on in their head. Please shut the fuck up. Now, obviously, we don't want people to kill themselves. We want people to, live a happy life. But that doesn't happen all the time. The world, as it exists right now, is garbage. It's really fucking garbage. It's really fucking bad. It's really bad, the world we live in. So, again, I can't fault someone for wanting to kill themselves. I've had suicide attempts in my life, right? Am I glad that I didn't kill myself? You bet your sweet ass bippy I'm glad I didn't kill myself, because my life is a lot better than it was during that moment of my life. But at the same time, everyone's lives are different, right? So he also had these, spiritual and religious beliefs that he believed very heavily in, that motivated him to do so in this way, in a way that would garner attention. I respect that. I will say I respect that. And so, again, it's interesting that mainstream media did not really kind of pick up on this until today, and I'm glad that they're starting to pick up on it, why he did this. And again, climate activism is something that's extremely important. We're seeing the mass extinction. Again, I know we often as humans talk about things in human terms of, what is the human death toll of climate change so far, right? But, let's just not even talk about humans. We are now facing a mass extinction, right? There are thousands of species of plants, animals, right? Other kinds of creatures and life on this planet, right? Thousands of species per year that are going extinct. Per year, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands, okay? That alone is cause for alarm, right? And then we look at the human impact, right? There are thousands and thousands and thousands of people that have been killed in these freak storms like hurricanes and all that kind of stuff that's happening all over the place, right? We're talking about heat exhaustion in a lot of these places. Look at the Pacific Northwest last summer. There was 80 deaths linked to heat exhaustion in the Pacific Northwest last summer. Something like that. I don't know, over the course of a week over this heat wave. And this is happening, look at the Middle East. They're dealing with hundreds of people being, just dying of heat exhaustion, not having enough water, not having enough air conditioning, that kind of stuff, access to better environments to just live in, right? So again, and that's just death toll. We often think, oh, did you die? Well, if you didn't die, you're it's like the COVID. Oh, well, only 0 whatever % of people die. Yeah, what about the fucking 40% of people who get long COVID, right? So now let's talk about how many people have been displaced. Millions of human beings have been displaced by climate change. They've had to move away from where they were before because of things like fires destroying their homes, because, they just can't literally live in certain areas of the planet anymore, right? And it's going to get worse and worse and worse, and politicians ignore it. Or even worse, they pretend like they're doing something, like Joe Biden. I'm going to do something. He's done nothing. He has done zero. He has done nothing, not at all. Right? So we're fucked. And I just want to say that we are fucked. Okay? And again, just to be very clear, not in the good dick way. We are not getting fucked in the good dick way. At least at this current moment in time. And so again, if someone is 50 years old, right? And let's say they've got some health conditions, something like that, I don't know this person's personal health history, but it's possible they're 50, they've got some chronic condition, right? They maybe, something happened to them and they feel like they don't have much time left anyway. might as well go out doing a symbolic gesture than, like, you know, dies in some way that people won't notice. That's my, like, so I can't tell you what was going on through this person's head, but what I can tell you is what the message they left behind was, and that I agree with the message. And, you know, again, unfortunately, I don't think anything's going to change. I don't think anything's going to change. Right? The media doesn't care. Right? The people don't care. Human beings don't care. Politicians certainly don't care. We're just going to run out the clock until we all die. That's the trajectory we are on. I mean, we're seeing the media talk about ridiculous bullshit like, oh, maybe Vladimir Putin should use nukes because that would cool the planet. Like that fucking insane garbage. Right? Like, we're fucked. And, again, I try my best not to think about it. You know, like in my day-to-day. Like, you know, I try my best when I'm, like, you know, reading a book or playing with my dog not to think about the fact that the world's going to fucking set itself on fire in my lifetime. But that's going to happen. Right? 30, 40 years from now, it's over. It's game over. Like, it's over. It's done. Unless we do something. And we've been going through this loop, this cycle for since the 1970s of climate change is real. Maybe it's not that real. Maybe it's not real. Let's just kick the can down the road. Next quarter. Let's wait next quarter. We need to get our profits next quarter. Maybe next quarter. Maybe next quarter. And then fucking 50 quarters later, 30 years later, here we are. We're fucked. We're fucked. So again, rest in power. Win Alan Bruce. My opinion, I will not in any way criticize his actions. I think it is a little silly to criticize his actions instead of focusing on why he did what he did. Everyone has their own reasons for suicide. And again, if you feel that you're, again, I just want to be honest with you. I just want to be very clear with you, right? I'm only speaking for myself. Okay? As someone who has dealt with suicidal tendencies for a lot of my life, I've tried to kill myself like 5 times, right? Seeing shit like this, I'm just saying, I'm only speaking for myself. Seeing shit like this is, this doesn't do any, and I've spoken to a lot of people that have depression issues that have also been suicidal. The suicide hotline works for some people, and that's great, more power to them. But I hate the way that normies, normal people, neurotypical people, talk about suicide whenever they feel, trigger warning, call the suicide hotline. I don't want to deal with you. I don't care about you. I don't want to respond to anything you're saying. I'm not going to reach out to you to see if you're okay. I'm just going to post the suicide hotline, and I've absolved myself of any possible things I could have done. I just hate that mentality. A lot of people, I have seen interactions where someone is like, they ask someone for, and not everyone is a licensed therapist, right? You don't need to, if someone might kill themselves and you feel like, you can't deal with that situation. Again, this is a very complicated scenario. But I just want to say, right? For me personally, whenever anyone has recommended the suicide hotline, it has always made me feel worse. I've tried calling the hotline. They've always made me feel worse, right? The people on there are really, in my experience, not good. Now, again, I'm only talking about myself. I would say it's worth a shot. But I just hate the way neurotypical people talk about suicide. Like, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. They think, if I just post a suicide hotline, I can wash my hands of any potential responsibility I have for anything. You know what I mean? It's just I hate the suicide hotline bullshit. Now, again, I'm glad it exists. Right? It's really great that it exists, and that it helps a lot of people. I know a lot of people that have been helped by the suicide hotline, so I'm not saying that it shouldn't exist. I'm just saying we need to really change the way we talk about suicide in the national consciousness. And neurotypical people that don't deal with these problems, they just think, I'll post the suicide hotline number and then move, then I post send message and then turn my phone off and then, I don't know, do whatever, because I did my job. I don't know, man. But suicide is, of course, a symptom of a much larger problem, and that is that society is totally broken, and that people feel like they're powerless, right? There have been many, tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of deaths linked to the 2008 financial crash. Again, over the course of 2008, 9, and 10, you saw suicides skyrocket, right? And there were a lot of people that documented that said notes that, I lost my house, I lost my family, I got nothing left, I'm in so much debt, I'm going to kill myself, right? That's happened. And that number, suicides have been going up and up and up for a long time, right? We saw over the pandemic, so many people killed themselves over the pandemic. So many people died from things like alcoholism, which you can say is a form of suicide, right? Again, I would say, sometimes when I've tried to kill myself, I've tried to use alcohol, right? So for me, right, if I were to have, let's say, drank too much and died or something, it would have probably not been reported. Well, it might have been, I don't know, but a lot of people die from alcoholism, make bad decisions when they're drunk, that kind of stuff. Again, the reason for this, suicide is a symptom of it. Now, there are some people, maybe it's possible, some people are beyond help. I don't think anyone is beyond help personally, but I'm open to the idea that some people just can't be saved. But if we restructured society so that people didn't lose everything every 10 years, if there wasn't a financial crash every 10 years and people didn't lose everything that they had worked for every once in a while, I think suicides would go down. If we lived in a society where you could go get healthcare if you need it. Oh, I want to talk to a therapist. Oh, wait, I need to come up with $700 per session. I'm not going to talk to a therapist. I can't afford it. I'm just going to kill myself. Think about this, right? Anyone, especially when these politicians, these shit fuck asshole politicians talk about suicide. How about you provide, free therapy sessions? How about you do something? Again, the idea that therapy is so expensive in this country is fucking ludicrous, right? I've tried therapy before, right? It's fucking expensive. If you don't have health insurance, you're not affording therapy, right? If you are thinking about killing yourself, chances are you don't have that much money. Where the fuck are you going to come up with several $100s per session, per week? fucking $1,000 a month just for therapy. You're not going to afford it. You're not going to afford it. You're going to kill yourself. And again, that's the situation that our country leads to. Our country's system, the system of society that we live in, breeds suicidal people, and it promotes suicide. No amount of posting the suicide hotline is going to undo the amount of death and suffering and despair that is caused by stuff like the health care system in this country, by stuff like climate change, forcing people to leave their homes because their homes get destroyed by hurricanes or fires or floods and all that fucking shit, right? No amount of posting the suicide hotline is going to undo the damage that's being done by the owners of this country, the owners of society, the billionaires, the fucking oligarchs that control the world, right? No amount, I'm going to post a suicide hotline and then just avoid talking about all the hard problems. Go fuck yourself. I'm sick of that shit. I'm sick of neurotypical people talking about suicide in cringy ways. In my opinion, if you have never, unless you're directly related to someone, if you are related to someone and if you feel, a certain way about them killing themselves, that's completely valid. But if you hear about a stranger, someone you've never heard of before, killing themselves, you've never heard of their name before they killed themselves, you have no right to talk about them, or, in my opinion, you look like a fool. Fuck yourself. I hate you. And I just want to say that. Anyway. So rest in power. I go to therapy because I suffer from anxiety of having to pay for therapy. It's fucking crazy. Yep, as a former attempted suicider, when I get started talking about suicide, I go to town. So I apologize. Maybe I should have offered a trigger warning for that. But, I'm passionate about the issue. Yep, the fact that, most society is, they don't, mental health care doesn't exist. For 99% of society, and how we engage with each other, we all pretend mental health is non-existent. If I start sneezing, someone's going to ask, oh, are you sick? How are you feeling? You need antibiotics? But if I start crying, motherfuckers are going to be like, why are you crying, you fucking moron? You know what I mean? It's crazy. Home, I can go into that another time, maybe. I've been told a few times I should seek therapy, but I can't afford it. You know, I'm in the same boat. All right, let's talk about this, because this is some real fucking stupid. I want to talk about this story because this is fucking stupid. We, and by we I mean humans, really don't know anything about World War II. As a global society, right, there were people alive that were in concentration camps. They're still alive right now. They can tell you what was going on. There are people that are alive right now that participated in World War II. But the general knowledge base of most people when it comes to World War II is so garbage that it's honestly, it's depressing to think about. And I'm talking there are mass delusions in regards to World War II that are still prominently being displayed in a lot of places. And this story here shows that the government of Japan, this is, in my opinion, imagine if the German chancellor was like, oh, Hitler's not that bad. Imagine if, what's that guy's name? Olaf Scholz or something. Imagine if Olaf were to go out there, or any German politician were to go out there and tell you Hitler wasn't a fascist. Imagine if a fucking Italian politician would go out there and say Mussolini is a fascist. What? That's offensive, good sir. That's offensive. Well, that's exactly what a Japanese politician did. And this is the dumbest fucking story I have ever seen in my life. This is fucking ridiculously stupid. This is ridiculously fucking stupid. Anger in Japan as Ukraine links Emperor Hirohito to Adolf Hitler. Read this headline. Now, I want to talk to you about Japan and their reckoning with World War II. Hirohito was primarily responsible for World War II and getting Japan involved in the way it did. Anyone who wants to debate that is a fucking moron. Go fuck yourself. Read a book. Okay? But Japan, right, in a deal with the United States, right, Japan kind of basically became a colony of the U.S. for a little bit. You know, some people would say stuff, you know. But in part of that deal, in negotiating the surrender, right, they wanted to absolve Hirohito of any wrongdoing during World War II, right? Hirohito was still the emperor of Japan in the 1980s. In the 1980s, he was going through motorcades, waving at all of the subjects. And everyone was like, woo! In the 1980s. Right? So what they did was they basically did a fucking shit fuck, right? A rat fuck of epic proportions. Tried to blame World War II all on a government like the parliamentarian kind of government that had little to no power before World War II. One of the compromises after World War II with Japan was that the government and the emperor, the government, an elected government, a democratic government, would take control of how the country operates, and the emperor would be relegated to a more ceremonial role. That was what they did. But in doing so, what they did was they whitewashed Hirohito's entire genocidal fascist campaign. What the fuck? What the fuck? Okay? So now, basic history lesson, right? Let's fast forward to yesterday. An official Ukrainian government Twitter account issued an apology after showing a picture of Japan's wartime Emperor Hirohito alongside Adolf Hitler and Benito Mussolini in a social media video about the defeat of fascism. I'm losing it at this. I am losing it, okay? Our sincere apologies to Japan for this mistake. Let me just go on the the tweet here. So an official with the Japanese government said, regarding this problem video, Sato, the chairman of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, has also requested the European Affairs Bureau of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to take immediate action. Because the government of Ukraine wanted to compare Putin to historical fascists such as Mussolini, Hirohito, or Hitler, the government of Japan now wants to like sever beneficial relationships or like, benevolent, with Ukraine because of this. Because they had the audacity to call Hirohito what he is, and a genocidal fascist. That's what he was. Imagine a world where Adolf Hitler didn't kill himself, and Adolf Hitler was relegated to a ceremonial king role. He was just the king of Germany until the 1980s. Like, could you imagine that? Because that's what happened in Japan. That's what happened in Japan, full stop. And now, even to this day, there are Japanese government officials. Again, imagine if a German politician was like, the concentration camps weren't that big of a deal. Imagine if a German politician said, swastikas, it's not that bad. Get over it. Imagine if a German politician, right, or the head of the, foreign ministry said, you know what, Hitler, pretty based, actually. I like Hitler. don't take that out of context, right? That's basically what the Japanese government did. Fuck yeah, Hitler's my boy. I love Hitler. Hirohito, fuck yeah. I love Hirohito. Like, imagine if a German politician were to be like, oh yeah, Heil Hitler, fuck yeah, I love Hitler. Like, imagine if an Italian politician was like, Mussolini was super cool, actually. But I want to read back into this Bloomberg story. Ukraine apologized for this, which they should not have. They should not have apologized for this. Now, I know why they did, because they were pressured and bullied by a fascist government. If I'm going to be honest, whoever leads the government of Japan, whoever was involved in these decisions, they're fascists, full stop. They're neo-Nazis. I don't care what other context you want to show me. Anyone who wants to downplay Hirohito's involvement in World War II as a neo-Nazi is a fascist, full stop. End of story, end of discussion. Shut the fuck up. Right? I think it's perfectly fair to compare Vladimir Putin to the likes of Adolf Hitler or Hirohito or Mussolini, right? I think 100%. Anyone that gets upset by that is a fucking fascist. Full stop. The tweet had circulated widely over the weekend and prompted an official protest from Japan. It also threatened to alienate some conservatives from the Ukrainian cause in a country that has been strongly supportive of Volodymyr Zelensky since the Russian invasion began. Japan has joined its ally, the U.S., and other leading democracies in sanctions against Russian President Vladimir Putin's regime, and has broken with its pacifist tradition by sending non-lethal military equipment to Ukraine. It has also taken the unusual step of opening its doors to a few hundred refugees fleeing the war. Masahisa Sato, the head of the ruling Liberal Democratic Party, Liberal Democrat, I'm sorry, a Liberal Democrat does not say, oh yeah, Benito Mussolini, I love that guy. That's not what a Liberal Democrat does. Zero Liberal Democrats on planet Earth have ever said, oh, Hirohito, I love that guy. He was great. That's not what a Liberal Democrat would say. That's a fascist, okay? That is a neo-Nazi. That is a fascist. That is a genocidal freak who should be in fucking jail somewhere. Should certainly not have political power anywhere. Said Sunday on Twitter, he had urged the foreign ministry to protest to the Ukrainian government. He later added the ministry appeared to have done so and the problematic video was removed. While some Twitter users said they had lost interest in supporting Ukraine over the post. Imagine you support Ukraine all the way up until April 23rd, and then you see the Ukrainian video compared Putin to World War II fascists, and you got triggered. So bad you got triggered that, oh yeah, you know what, now I support the fascists. What? Others said it would have been more appropriate to use a picture of Hideki Tojo, who was Prime Minister of Japan during most of World War II and later hanged as a convicted war criminal. Now again, this was part of a grand historical revisionism scheme to try to lay all the blame on the government that barely had any power during Imperial Japan's, conquest of the world in World War II. These people had barely any power. Now, did they have power? Yes. Should they have been held accountable? Yes. But the goddamn emperor, right? had most of the power during World War II. That was one of the compromises after World War II. Right? Was that the emperor no longer has that kind of unilateral power. That was kind of one of the big compromises. I don't know what to tell you. Okay? These motherfuckers are insane. They are insane. Imagine a world where Adolf Hitler was like, you know what? Actually, I didn't do any of this. It was actually that fucking, what was that guy's name? Like Martin Bormann or whatever? The guy who disappeared in the airplane? When Hitler killed himself, I believe it was Bormann, the second in command, that became the technical head of World War II, Nazi Germany's command for 2 days, and then he disappeared in airspace or something. But anyway, like, imagine if Adolf Hitler didn't kill himself and said, it was the second in command who did everything, and I didn't do it. And then Adolf Hitler was being, like, in motorcades in the 1980s, going, yay, woo, That's what this is. That's what this is. Now, am I saying, right, that the government of Japan that existed during World War II was innocent? No, I'm saying they all had blood on their hands. I'm saying the whole fucking thing was corrupt. What they're saying is that no, the leader actually was not corrupt, and he's actually an innocent little boy, and he did nothing wrong. What? The Japanese public has backed a tough line to punish the Kremlin for the invasion. A poll carried out by the Nikkei newspaper April 22 to 24 found that 42% of respondents said Japan's sanctions against Russia should be made harsher, while 44% said current sanctions were appropriate. More than 62% of respondents say they approve of the government's overall handling of the war. I don't know what to tell you. Like, I really... Like, this shit's fucking insane. I mean, this shit is fucking insane. This is some this is some crazy ass fucking garbage. This is as reprehensible to me as when, like, Democratic politicians and media figures praised George W. Bush. Like, George W. Bush killed 1 million fucking civilians. Innocent, like, non-enemy combatants, non-military trained, 1 million civilians, including thousands of children, were murdered by George W. Bush. And then people go like, oh yeah, he's great. He's just going out there doing paint and, oh, fool me once. Woo! That motherfucker is a genocidal freak. He's a fascist fucking loser. He's a lunatic. Right? And that's, Japan has, it literally, like, I cannot wrap my mind around how Japan is still doing this. I really, wow. Like, I thought, like, Hirohito did nothing wrong. I mean, what? Are you joking me? Is this a joke? Is this like some sort of comedy bit? What is this? What am I watching? Is this a fucking joke? These are fascists. This Sato guy, the foreign ministry chairman, is a fascist. Full stop. This guy's a fascist. Anyone who's going to downplay this is a fascist. I'm sorry. Fuck you. Absolutely, unabashedly, go fuck yourself. Fascist, emperor, bootlicker, go fuck yourself. That's what I have to say. Fuck this piece of shit. Fuck the Japanese historical revisionism of their fascist war crimes. Now again, am I saying all Japanese people need to be punished for what their governments did in fucking 1940? No. What I'm saying is, if you're gonna fucking lie about it, you should be fucking held accountable. That's what I'm saying. Imagine if the foreign ministry chair of Germany was like, yeah, Hitler did nothing wrong. It was all fucking Goebbels and Bormann and all those other people. Hitler was a cool guy, actually. He's a vegetarian. Do you know that? Yeah. You know, I actually have a couple paintings of Hitler at my place. He's actually really nice. He loved dogs, actually. Hitler was actually an interesting guy. But it was really the second and third and fourth and fifth. They actually did all the things. The guy in charge, he's a sweet little boy. Didn't do anything. He didn't do nothing. Sweet little boy. Just like Hirohito. This shit's fucking crazy. This shit's fucking crazy, man. That is some crazy shit. That is some crazy fucking shit. That's some crazy, 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 crazy fucking shit. I can't. I can't with this. I'm so triggered by this. Like, I saw this morning, and I was like, this to me is similar to like this the story I mentioned with the execution in Texas, right? Where like Japan they're sending aid and stuff, right? They've got Ukraine by their balls, right? In the sense that like, oh, do what we say or we stop sending you aid, we stop accepting refugees. Ukraine was forced to apologize, even though they should not have had to. Hirohito is a fascist. It's full. I can't with this. I can't with this. I mean, man, that is some fuck shit. That is some fuck shit. It is some fuck shit. It is insane. It is insane. It is insane. It's crazy. I can't even. Anyway, let's end the show on a good note. Goddamn Bernard. Everyone loves him. Billionaires like Jeff Bezos made out like bandits. Bernie Sanders praises Amazon workers for unionizing. So Bernie Sanders and AOC were at the Amazon Labor Union rally in New York. There's currently, I believe, there's still voting going on for the second warehouse or whatever to vote whether or not to join the Amazon Labor Union or not. I believe voting is going on now as of this moment. But I want to read this article. On a day billed as Solidarity Sunday, Senator Bernie Sanders and Rep. AOC visited Amazon workers in New York City less than 24 hours before they start casting ballots on whether to form a union. After which Sanders departed to Richmond, Virginia to talk with Starbucks workers who have been organizing coffee shops around the nation. Got a little something going on here. Voting in Amazon's 1,500 employee LDJ5 facility, located across the street from the JFK 8 warehouse that made history just 3 weeks ago by becoming the first of the e-commerce giant's U.S. workplaces to unionize, is set to begin on April 25. That's today. If Jeff Bezos can afford a $500 million yacht, Sanders said, referring to the e-commerce giant's billionaire founder in a video promoting Sunday's event, he can afford to pay his workers on Amazon decent wages, decent benefits, and provide good working conditions. They can, and they should. It's true. Speaking from a stage in Staten Island, Sanders told Amazon workers that they are sending a message to every worker in America that the time is now to stand up to our oligarchy, again using the O word, which I entirely endorse, to stand up to the excessive corporate greed and to create an economy that works for all, not just for a few. A lot of people, I know a lot of people that went to this rally, they're telling me that it's got Bernie 2020 vibes. And that's good. You know? We need to bring back that energy. Except instead of doing it for political campaigns, we do it for union campaigns. That's it. That's the winning message. That's the strategy. Boom. Send. Press enter on that bitch, right? Send that fax, right? Let the machine start pumping out the numbers. Taking the mic from Tio Bernie, Ocasio-Cortez, D. Nye, congratulated the organizing committee on the Amazon Labor Union on its groundbreaking victory earlier this month, saying that it reminded the world that you don't need millions of dollars to stand up to multi-billion-dollar corporations. You just got to do the work. You need solidarity. You need to show people that you give a damn about them and that they will come together to organize and demand for better lives. ALU's successful union drive at JFK 8 was the first domino to fall, said Ocasio-Cortez, who called on Amazon to drop the dubious objections that it filed with the National Labor Relations Board, NLRB, in a bid to overturn the results. And so, let's keep reading. Derek Palmer, ALU's vice president. I don't know what this big space is. I think it's my ad blocker. I'm glad that everyone is finally waking up, this is the vice president, and realizing the power we have as an organization, as people. I think we have I think that's been lost throughout these years, and I'm glad that it's finally back. We've woken the country up, and I want us to continue on this journey, said Palmer. I want us to win LDJ5. Amazon, which is notorious for mistreating its workers and spending $4.3 million on anti-union consultants in 2021 alone, has intensified its union-busting tactics in the lead-up to the election that starts Monday. But LDJ5 has been busting their ass. organizing day in and day out, said Palmer. We need to support them, and we also need to support all the Amazon facilities around the world who want to organize as well. ALU President Christian Smalls terminated by Amazon in March 2020 after he organized a walkout at JFK 8 to protest management's refusal to adequately protect workers during the early weeks of the COVID-19 pandemic, admitted he has a vendetta against the company that fired him. Good! Fuck him! That's revenge, but done right. Again, I just want to say I'm very impressed with Chris Smalls. From that moment forward, we never looked back, said Smalls. We said, we're going to go anywhere it's necessary to advocate for workers' rights. And after Amazon defeated the retail, wholesale, and department store union last year in Alabama election, the NLRB invalidated due to corporate interference, he and his comrades decided to bring it back home to New York. We beat them right here, said Smalls, pointing at the JFK 8 warehouse. I'm so proud that our team expanded. The workers that are organizing expanded, and now we got to a point where workers are now organizing themselves. You can read the rest of this. But again, this is great. I love this photo of Bernie. That's just, I don't know what's going on there, but it's wonderful. But again, like, this is really good stuff. This is exactly what we need. Unions, I support unions. 100%. I support unionizing 100%. This, in my opinion, is the winning ticket. You just got to bring people to the left, organize more. Bring people more to your side. Start with common causes. Like, you're my coworker. We work in the same spot. Our livelihoods are linked. We should be working together. You work together with that person more. You bring them further to the left. You gain power. You gain electoral leverage and strength that you can, if the Amazon labor union for, if, let's say they unionize, like, let's say 40, 50 warehouses across the country, they become a national figure. Let's say they endorse a Bernie Sanders type person or anyone running in a 2024 race or anything, right? That could have more leverage. I mean, I'm just saying, right? This is how you build electoral power, is you start with local power. You start with union power. And then once you grow that, which is a lot easier to grow than doing a campaign, mind you, right? Once you grow that, then you can leverage it electorally. So it's a win-win. This is a great thing. And, again, I believe the voting is currently going on. And I will try to follow the story as much as I can. And it's just great. It's just great. I don't know. It's just good to see. Realon, I mean, this is big, but the rejuvenation of the union movement is a few years in the making. What do you mean? What does that mean? My brain is focused on but. Like, what's the but? This is big, but the rejuvenation of the union movement is a few years in the making. Like, are you saying, like, we shouldn't... I cannot comprehend what you're trying to say. But thank you. Yeah, I mean, if Chris Smalls got a Nobel Peace Prize, that would be a net negative, in my opinion. Fuck the goddamn Nobel Peace Prize. If I ever get offered a Nobel Peace Prize, I'm declining that fucking garbage. I mean, I'm all for, like, trolling the fuck out of your boss. Like, leave flaming bags of dog shit, right, on their car hood. I'm all in favor. Other possible strategies. But also, I'm in favor of unionizing as well. Probably still don't have to burn it. Oh, okay, Relon, I understand. Well, yeah, I mean, in order to win a union election, there's years and years of buildup for sure. But it's all like it's a domino effect, right? Like it's exponential returns. Like, think about it. Like you'd think about, like, computers or technological development. Like, once you develop a certain technology, you can use that technology to more easily develop better technologies, but it's easier to develop the better technologies with the less advanced technology, right? So it's like the first union yes, it takes a lot of time to build the first union, but then the time in between the first union and no union is a lot longer than between 1 and 2, and right, so they all build off of each other. But yeah, I mean, it's important to understand for sure that, you know, it's been going on for a while. So, important contribution to the discourse for Elon. Speaking of important contributions, y'all should be giving me some cash, some money. The month is almost over, and so I've got to report to the board, or the Above It All Board of Special Interests. To be honest with you, they're bored. You know, they're bored with this lack of fundraising. Once again, y'all, if you want to contribute to a variety of projects, Cooking with the Bitch will return once again on Wednesday. I've got 2 side projects I'm working on. One of them is the Lucid Dream project. The other one is a secret project for now. Both of them will be available at some point by the end of the year. You know, over the course of this year. You know, whenever. And so, you know, give me money, support the various projects. Yes, I want you to contribute to things that you don't even know what they are. I should sell this, like, you know, like, my apologies, I'm drinking seltzer, as like a Patreon tier. Like, give me $100, and you don't know what I'm using it for, but I can tell you it's gonna be cool. And that's all you know. You just, it's an article of faith. That's how I start the cult. Anyway, thank you if you do contribute. Thank you to everyone that does. I don't like the people, like, do people want me to thank them on stream? Like, I don't know. Sometimes people give me contributions like off stream, and I don't know. I don't like reading people's full names. I'm awkward about that. I don't know, man. I don't know, man. I used your money for the chair on Mark Monkey's stream. I did not hear that. Is Orange Man on the board? Not yet. We've sent an official letter of invitation, but unfortunately, he has not replied. Anyway, that's my show for today. I want to say I apologize for being really slow with my clip editing. Over the course of the next couple of days, I'm going to try to catch up with my clip posting. Because last week, I played a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! Dungeon Dice Monsters. And so, I did 4 runs of that fucking shit last week. And I did get the world record, so that's cool. But also, I did not do my other... you know, stuff that I try to do. So I still got a lot to catch up on that. And there you go. That and this and more. Wednesday, Cooking with the Goddamn. That's all I got. Thank you all. I will see you tomorrow morning. Have a good rest of your day.
That isn't what it meant.
Well, what did it mean then? Explain.
It meant that it's indicative of low-resolution thinking.
I am not up to the job. And I mean that sincerely. It's not like, whoa.
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day. Every day it is time for us to agree.
They had a very bad original concept. It was carried out poorly, and the cover-up was one of the worst in the history of cover-ups. Very simple. Bad deal, should have never been thought of. Somebody really messed up, and they had the worst cover-up ever. And where it should have stopped, is at the deal standpoint when they thought about it. Because whoever thought of that idea, I think is in big trouble.
No, seriously, hot sauce. I've been eating a lot of hot sauce, a lot of raw peppers, sauce, lots of sauce, a lot of raw peppers and hot sauce.
All of a sudden, we can't talk about Neanderthal DNA anymore.
Then I have an article too, where I have the right to do whatever I want as president, but I don't even talk about that. $7 million for reef fish management, $25 million to combat Asian carp, $2.5 million to count the number of amberjack fish in the Gulf of Mexico.
I eat extra sharp. That's what I eat.